Sound test. Sound test. Sound test. Good morning, or I should say good evening. Or maybe good night for some. As the title suggests, this is going to be my overview and sort of guide for the trust system within Final Fantasy XIV. Now, for those of you who may be new to this and new to the game, this is basically a system in which you can call upon NPC allies to enlist in dungeons, in particular for the expansion Shadowbringers, which by far has been amazing in almost every aspect of it. There's a few criticisms here and there, but hey, nothing's perfect, and we just have to kind of try to pick out the best parts and make sure the devs know about the parts that we didn't like so they can get proper feedback and continue to bring an awesome work to the game. So the trust system, as I said, is a system that was designed to enlist NPC allies into doing dungeons with you, specifically only for the first couple of story dungeons, and more recently there's going to be one dungeon per patch now, so these dungeons will of course be usable by your trusts, because these dungeons will most likely be tied to the main scenario. The dev team probably decided this move was best going forward so that they can automatically code this system into the dungeons and make it a lot easier overall for their workload that they currently have to deal with on their tight patch schedules. So basically you'll access the trust through a menu in-game, and I'll show you that here. And I just put a little icon on my hot bar there, which is the trust icon there. And here's where you can access your trusts. And they are also sort of, as you're in the main scenario for Shadowbringers, they're just kind of they're at the dungeon entrance, so you can click on any one of them here. And as you can see, the trusts are mostly consistent of the main cast here. But if you actually complete all of the all of their leveling process, which we'll get into that, you can actually use additional characters that they introduce as well for these dungeons. So, and like I said, for the most part, it's just your main cast, but there's additional characters that will occasionally tag along with you for a brief time, for as long as they're there until you get to the end of the leveling process with these guys, and then you unlock this mode here called Scenario Mode, and this kind of just allows you to replay dungeons with those NPCs again that are not available through normal means. So there's that nice little addition there. And then, you know, as far as unlocking goes, that will start very early on in this Shadowbringers story. So you don't have to worry there about like, oh my gosh, do I have to meet like prerequisite or anything like that? No, there's no prerequisite. You just have to do your main scenario quests up to that point. Will be right at your first Shadowbringers dungeon, level 71 dungeon called Holminster Switch. And, you know, without getting into like the whole lore and story aspect of that, because I guess that's still kind of spoilers while it's still fresh for some this year. Even though, you know, it launched technically last summer. But we'll avoid the spoilers for now, I guess, and just say that there's a purpose for their trusts being where they are at when you get them, so... Or, I should say when they're available to you. And so with this system, it was designed to basically be like, you know, it was designed so that, you know, newer players can get help or assistance that they need to get through the dungeon and, you know, make some forward progression with the main quest. And, you know, get to the end game a lot easier than, say, if people just stop running the content or they don't want to queue up for the dungeons anymore because they have no reason to really. You know, despite the things the devs try to do to make us existing players run through 1,000 more times, they have realized, you know, but hey, that's not really gonna cut it anymore, you know, that people are just gonna, you know, they just wanna get it done and, you know, be able to enjoy the end game experience with all their friends, family members, and whatnot. So they understand that, and so, you know, they don't want to leave anyone else behind, you know, make it so that they can't, you know, reach, like, the goals. But, I mean, there's still, the issue of the trials, I guess, because you can't really use these NPCs for the trials that you have to undergo within the story, so I don't really know what they're planning to address with that. Maybe somewhere in the future they'll tweak the fight so that it can be done with just 4 people instead of 8, because I know it's getting kind of a little ridiculous now. And I'm sure nobody wants to wait, you know, 30 plus minutes or hours even for like a Steps of Faith to queue or pop up for them, or you know, any of the other 8-man trials that are older in A Realm Reborn. I'm sure nobody wants to do that. So I can see definitely in the near future they'll be adjusting older fights, making them easily clearable with just a party of 4 instead of, you know, a party of 8. And that'll be amazing and fantastic for the game's life cycle overall. And with the trust system in mind, I think they're going to plan to develop it even further. I mean, there's a lot of demand, you know, to have this system in the older parts of the game, because it is a long trek I'm not gonna lie to you. It's a superbly long trek, and, you know, you don't really want to, be stuck in the long trek, especially with, like I said, the queue times getting longer and longer as each new expansion comes out, or, each new patch, DLC patch, whatever you want to call it. When each thing comes out and new thing comes out, and, just all the old content just doesn't get done anymore. Just sits there, just collecting the dust, rotting away, dying slowly, painfully. So I think with that in mind, the devs are taking a greater look back at this now, and they're like, you know what, we have the system now, it's in place, and, we should capitalize on it now. And, there's a lot, like I said, there's a lot of demand. The players want more of it. And it's probably going to be the case. Like, I'm sure, in their off time, the developers for the Trust system are going back through, the older story dungeons for, Stormblood, Heaven's Word, and such. And highly considering, okay, maybe we can code these NPCs into this dungeon, and we'll make it work just like, these NPCs here, and this will make it a lot easier for our players, to get through their main scenario and not have to worry about, oh, I have to, skip everything. I can't fall behind, or else I'm not going to get to do my raids with friends and stuff, or, I'm going to miss all this stuff and my friends are going to leave me behind, etc., Which is a valid concern, and, the devs, they hear it and they're listening, they're going back to A Realm Reborn. There was some time probably this year, at the end of this year, they're gonna, tweak it and make sure that it's not as long of a trek, that it's sort of condensed into one straight narrow path. You don't have to have these deviations, The old thing with the Realm Reborn, let me tell you, is you always had to run from point B to point A to point C, D, E, There was never just one A to B point. It's always just everywhere, and it's crazy. So, sometime whenever they jump around to it, or whenever one of the devs on the team has time to, go over that, they'll tweak it, adjust it so that, all these, all these pointless, I would say, I guess, fetch quests, they call them, those quests will be removed from the main scenario. So, if you watch streamers who played A Realm Reborn back then and such, enjoy seeing what they've shown you there, and maybe you can go back and watch them just to kind of see if you're curious what it was like, back in the original A Realm Reborn, I guess the vanilla, and see what it was like before, all those quests were removed from the game permanently, probably. So, overall, they're just making it a lot easier on the player base to, be able to enjoy the game. And that's great, It's always great to see these quality of life adjustments such as that, to make the game easier and, just a more enjoyable experience overall. It makes our lives easier, makes their lives easier, and just smooth sailing from there. Then they can focus, more time and resources on all the nice and great stuff that they have in store for us in the future patches. Anyway, a little off topic, got sidetracked there, sorry. And I apologize if my voice sounds a little, nasally and off, but I just got over a sneezing fit. I have a bit of allergies, so I apologize. But, anyway, once you hit level 71 and you're in the main scenario, you'll come across a quest called the Light Wardens. Sorry. And then it will take you to your first dungeon, like I said, the Holminster Switch. And that will be where you guys have access and have unlocked the trust system for the first time. And these dungeons are replayable with their trusts, so you won't have to worry about I'm not going to be able to use them again, or it's just gone. No, it will be there for you, so you'll be able to re-queue for the dungeon with the trust as many times as you need, or as many times as you want. And the very important thing is that you are getting experience points for running with the trust. It's not just you're running through just for the sake of getting done. You are getting experience points for running with the trust's NPCs, so you don't have to be scared that or be worried that it's just there as a novelty. It's really not. You can replay the dungeons and level other jobs, level your main job with the trust NPCs. So no worries, no fears there. And again, like I said, there will be certain guests, like NPCs, who jump in periodically for just the one dungeon, or maybe for 2 dungeons, depending on how the story is written out. You'll see those NPCs, and they'll be available as options for you, for the first little bit. Afterwards, once you've finally completed the Shadowbringer story, they'll have to be unlocked for usability. And that's where, kind of one of the flaws comes in with the system, but take it how you will. But like I said, the system is designed to help newer players, and it was designed with that philosophy in mind, so it's by no means a perfect system. Like I said, there's flaws. There's ups and downs. And I guess we'll go over, basically what those are now. So the ups and downs of the trust systems. Let's start with what's positive first. What's positive is that the AI is programmed to do the mechanics of the boss fights. So it's they're very much scripted, you could say. And that's basically how it's intended to be for anything main story related. It's supposed to be written out on a core set path. It's not supposed to like deviate from the certain path, and these AI will, they will follow down to the letter the mechanics of, the different boss fights that you encounter throughout the Shadowbringer story and beyond, of course. This system has been, like I said, highly requested, highly praised by both players and, developers, so they're very happy that it received as much good feedback as it has, and they're going to continue to, develop on it and improve upon it so that players always have access to it. Like, if they feel they need to have it. Like, some players, you know, they don't feel like they necessarily need, like, the NPC, so they'll queue up normally to try and get a party, or, they'll use the party finder, look for some down-to-earth, similar, like-minded people to join them through a dungeon come runs or two. Or they'll ask their free company or link shell groups, say, hey, anyone want to help me get this done, want to help me clear, or want to help me farm for some experience points or whatnot. And some people will do that, and that's perfectly fine. This is an MMO game, so you should always have the option of multiplayer functionality within this kind of game. And so that much hasn't changed for some people. Some people will just queue up normally with players, and like I said, that will be on one of the con sides that will go further into that, but we're on the good parts. So like I said, NPCs, they will follow mechanics down to the letter, so you won't have to worry too much about them not doing a certain thing that they're supposed to do, because they will execute it. Like, even if it's a mechanic that you can't really get to yourself, the trusts, they're written to do, like every mechanic that the fight has, so you really don't need to worry too much, like, if you missed something, because, the trust will handle it for the most part. The one thing you do want to, kind of take note of, though, is that, because they're, scripted, they'll only go, like, one path, and so you might find, like, the easiest path for you would be to go to a certain spot, but then, because the NPC is written to go to that spot specifically, they're going to take it from you, and it's going to be kind of aggravating when that happens, but, like I said, it's not too hard to adjust to them, and they will get the mechanics done, so if there's like any wipe at all, then that's mostly on your part, the player. So, in a way, it's a teaching method to the trust system. The trust, they do kind of guide you along, when in these certain instance fights. They kind of guide you along by the hand and say, hey, like my character's name for Amadeus, hey, they're planning something big here. Or, hey, watch out. They'll shout something. And then you'll just have to be mindful of, like, where they're standing. Sometimes, okay, that's a safe spot to go to, so I'll go there. Or like, oh, this NPC did that. Oh, okay, so I need to do that as well. So it's, it's both like a benefit where they'll the mechanics, most mechanics for you, and also they'll teach you those mechanics at the same time. So it's kind of like a, you know, like I said, a teaching system in and of itself. And, that's just one of the fantastic things about it is that, even if you're not sure, like, what you were supposed to do, even if you wipe, you'll be like, as long as you watch, like, your trust, you watch what they do, and also try not to die. um, you know, then they will be able to show you, kind of point you in the direction of, like, okay, this mechanic happens here. Okay, so I need to go here and do this. So your Stola's gonna go over here and do that. So I'm gonna be doing this, and we're all good. Everyone's good. So that's one of the benefits of the trust system. There is, they AI do perform mechanics, and they also kind of nudge you along to what you're supposed to do. Um, Another great thing about them is they have their own, like, unique dialogue interactions with each other, with certain bosses, and certain encounters along the way. Sorry for the yawn. I'm just like usually falling sleeping in bed by this time, but this is the only best time for me to record. It seems like when there's no incessant or terrible background noise. At least normally. But anyway, moving on. The other good thing, like I said, you do get experience points, so it's not a bad thing that you have to rely, if you have to rely on the trust system to get, through the dungeon, get it cleared, and move on to the next, and so on and so forth. And along with the experience points, you also get all of the loot from the coffers that appear, so you're not constantly rolling against other players in an unfair... I call it unfair. I mean, by all rights, it is a fair system, but it isn't. Like, for you, if you play on your job specifically, you're guaranteed to get your pieces of loot for that job. But like, say you like wanted to run through with your other job like afterwards, or you wanted to, but they're not like geared up to the minimal requirement that you need to have to actually, queue the dungeon, then you couldn't do that with other players because, they might also need that gear at the same time. And so, because they're on the priority of that role or that job, they'll automatically receive that piece, whereas you'll have to roll a greed and pray and hope that you get that piece. And, also there's glamour hunters, people that will see like a set of gear and they're like, oh gosh, I really want that for my other job here. I need that. So you don't have to worry about that with trusts. They're just there to help you push through and also, level up too with you. We'll get into the leveling system on the con side. But they're there just to be there to help you for your benefit. And so you get all coffers to yourself. So anything that drops, whether it's music, glamour gear, or gear to use to level, with. It's all yours. And this also includes in the final coffer of each dungeon a weapon. So again, you can use that for glamour's purposes, or if you need that specific weapon because your current one is maybe not optimal for leveling at your current stage, then you get that too. So it's great for that reason, and it helps replay the dungeon again, like I said, to go back and get those pieces of gears that you might need or want, or get the music from the dungeon, or minion drops, whatever rare drop. That's counted in with the trust system as well, so you don't have to worry about rolling against other players for those things if you don't wish to. So that's fantastic there for this system. Um, and other than that, you get to choose between, the different cast members, like I said, from this trust menu here. You get to choose between, like, the main cast here: Alfino, Alize, Thancred, Urianshe, Ishola, and, the newly introduced character Reen. But, like I said, we won't go into spoilers. So, just chug along the main scenario if you're there, and you'll learn all about who Reen is. As well as, these other NPCs. We have Lena here and the Crystal Exarch. You'll learn all about them just by doing the story. So you got those people, those NPCs to choose from to run these dungeons with. And like I said, it's fun because they each have their own quirks, their own personalities. They have unique dialogue for certain encounters and parts of the interactions in the dungeon. So, if you're someone who really wants to, you're like, I really love, Alize, for example, and I want to hear what her take is on this, so you can use Alize in your party, and maybe she'll chime in here and there a couple dialogue options. So, and yeah, about with the dialogue options, I can tell you this. Depending on your party formation, some NPCs may talk more than others. So it's take it how you will thing. And if you want to figure out like I said, they all say, you can try different party combinations and see what they all have to say. So that's a fun thing to go back and do and to use as replayability. Let's see. That's about all I can think of for the pros. They give you a guaranteed fast queue. They execute the mechanics as they're intended to be executed. And also they help nudge you in the right direction of doing mechanics as well, if you're paying attention closely to the fight and what they do. And, you get all the coffer loot to yourself. And you get experience points for doing the dungeon with them as well. So I think all of these things are fantastic, but there is some flaws, and let's get into that now for The cons. So, the cons of this system. So, these NPCs are programmed specific ways. And by specific ways, I mean, like, they're wholly programmed to act like as their character should act and behave. So, at times, they may be difficult to comprehend. Like, you'll want them to be doing, like, more of something, but they're just not gonna do that because it's not with it in their AI programming. They're not programmed specifically to do, what the player wants them to do. They will automatically do, what they're going to do themselves. So you can't, like, boss them around like you do the squadron NPCs. You can't say, okay, stupid, go here. Okay, Dumbo, you sit here. Don't move. Don't move from here. Stay put. You can't do that kind of thing there. They will act of their own free will, because that's how the developers intended them to be, is to act of their own accord. Because otherwise, if they didn't, like, it wouldn't be as refined or as polished as it is, to where they do all these different unique encounters with you. So, as bad as it is, that where they'll do certain things that can be, aggravating, frustrating, or sometimes even hilarious. Like, I can tell you, sometimes I've caught some very hilarious moments from doing the trust systems. Like, one in particular I'll share is, there was a dungeon, and after a fight, Alpha and I said, thankfully we all came out unscathed, but then oh god, that was a golden moment. Oh jeez. Well, yeah, and then there's also some times where Yashola and Alize will fight over the limit, who gets to use the limit break, and you're just kind of like shouting at the screen, just use it. you know and and they have a real big problem. At least Reen and Alize do. They have a real big issue with dodging AoEs and with using AoE themselves. Like, Reen, I don't think I've ever seen her use a single AoE throughout any of the dungeons I've used. And, considering who her mentor is, like, I can't really spoil too much, but I'll just say, considering who her mentor is and was, she really has no excuse lore-wise not to throw a few AoEs here and there. Like, come on. Come on, guys. Really? Really? You really couldn't give her at least one AoE to spam? Just one? One AoE? No? Okay, whatever. Alize's the same way, She's, if you've played Stormblood. If not, this is going to be kind of spoilery. So, if you're not in Stormblood, then I recommend But, okay, anyway, go ahead, do your mute thing. And then, okay, so, she's basically a red mage, so she can cast spells fast in succession. And red mage has AoE at level 70, like 4 or 5 of them. Like, what's her excuse? Tell me, story writers, what is Alize's excuse for not using AoE? Damn it. What is the excuse? I want it written, Koji Fox, tell me. I if I ever meet you, Koji, I'm gonna make you tell me what Alize specifically not casting AoE spells. Like, no joke, it's a pet peeve, I'm sure, of most of us who use Alize in the party. It's like, really, come on now. Come on. Alize, don't do us like this. You're a freaking battle red mage. You have multiple AoE spells. Just toss them out, please, please. Oh my word. Anyway, on top of that, healing, um, it's not perfect, but it's a vast improvement. Considering, from the squadron, which is kind of just lowest tier of healing imaginable. Like some real A Realm Reborn level tier NPC healing. His at least his reason for not using AoE is understandable. Because they pretty much gutted that on, Scholar. They ripped that to shreds and tossed it out the window and said, good riddance. So Scholar doesn't really have that much AoE capabilities anymore. Nor does any of the healer for that matter. They just have, like, I think maybe 1 or 2 spells now. That's AoE related. Like, for example, Orion Shea, he only spams, like, the one AoE of his when he's not focused on healing you in the party. He's spamming the one AoE spell on the enemies. So, yeah. But, with Orion J, he's a fantastic healer. I can't diss on Orion J too badly. He does manage to, keep you alive through most situations. Granted, sometimes he can be a bit of a crutch healer. Like, especially if you're running through one of the dungeons as tank, he's very much a crutch healer where sometimes he gives you a big scare and you're like, oof, oh, oh, I'm gonna have a heart attack. Orion J, please don't do that, you know? So Orion J is very much a crutch healer sometimes. But overall, he is a fantastic healer to have on your team. And Alfino, you know, he does do great for damage mitigation if you're a tank, so there's that. For the rest of the party, not so much. So you've really gotta take care of yourself when you have Alfino as your healer, for the most part. He'll still heal you, of course, but it will be varied and few between compared to Urianger, who always makes sure that you have full HP bar, whereas Alfino, he just kind of lets you dwindle there a little before deciding to heal you. So, oh boy, as much as I love Alfino, I just sometimes can't fathom, why he's in the healer slot. But anyway, just one of those downside things with some of the NPCs, Yashola is, she's fantastic as a NPC ally. She bursts and, really isn't. Because, her teacher, was, the great master Matoya. And she's been called a witch. So, you imagine she's got a lot of, spells under her belt, and she's probably learned or taught some of those spells to Y'shtola. So, Y'shtola, calls herself the very same. She calls herself a witch in Shadowbringers, so she casts a flurry of different spells. She acts, I guess, sort of like a black mage rather than, a conjurer, like she was through most of A Realm Reborn and, Heaven's Ward and Stormblood. In this one, she's, this expansion, Shadowbring, she's more of a black mage. But she incorporates, not just like fire and lightning, and ice, like most black mages do, but she also, conjures up, water and wind spells as well. So that's really cool. And she just does, ton of damage. She's devastating. Guaranteed DPS you want to have. And then Thancred, he's pretty good as a tank. He holds aggro pretty well, substantially. Sometimes he'll maybe use a stray mob here and there. Like if you take the aggro, for example, then he'll sometimes not react as fast as he should. Gosh, I'm so sorry, guys. I know I should be a little more professionalism here, but oh gosh. Technology and, being normally in bed now. So bear with me. But Thancred, he's a pretty decent tank. He does keep most threat for the most part. Like I said, sometimes he'll lose a little bit of stray aggro, but he usually picks it back up. So, where like all you have to do is like drag the mob right to him, and he'll grab it then and there. But the only thing is he's fast, amazing pulls because at most he can only handle like 2 packs of mobs. If you pull any further than that, then he won't pick them all up, and you may die, thus wiping. And that's one of the other bad things about this system is, and it's one of my own personal gripes with it too, is that they're treating it very much like squadrons, where if you die, the player dies, well, that's counted as a wipe. So you're sent all the way automatically back to the start of the dungeon, and you have to go all the way back to where you were. Which feels like a pretty bad joke, honestly. I don't even know if it is a joke. It could be. For all I know, the guy the developer who's developing this content, for all I know, this could be his way of, getting a few laughs in and here and there at you for, messing up. Or for not paying attention, basically. But, okay, you got your laugh, Mr. Developer, but can you please, fix this now? Can you patch it? Make it so it's not an issue. And what makes this especially even more griping and frustrating is that even if one of the other characters dies, if they're KO'd for some reason, then, your healer NPC will naturally, he'll go in to start rezzing them. Or, Alize, if the healer KOs for whatever reason, or whoever, they'll toss down a Phoenix down to resurrect them or something. Like, I get all like, okay, trial and error. You have to learn somehow. We can't just give it to you. But, if you're gonna play the res card on the NPCs, then you need to play it on us, the player, as well. Otherwise, this is just extremely aggravating. It puts people off. It does. And then they don't want to do the rest of the dungeon. They just quit. They leave. So, please, if you're listening, developers, dev team, please patch that in so that that's no longer the case. Like, it's fine that it's in the Grand Company squadrons, that's fine. Okay, it's the Grand Company's for, fresh beginning people anyway. So, okay, it's fine to give them the trial and error, but let's be real here now. Level 70 is not, baby anymore. It's not hold you by the hand and spank your ass if you do something, bad or whatnot. Sort of thing, We're all adults now here, most of us anyway. I'd say the majority, Final Fantasy IV player base. We're all adults, basically, so let's cut it out with the, trial and error. computer rival. Why, like I said, I don't know if it was as intended as a joke. Maybe it was, but okay, we got the joke. You can let it go now. Seriously. Um, Alize, if you're DPS main, she will use the limit break at the wrong possible time. Like, whenever, as soon as that limit break bar's up, well, guess what? It's gone, as long as Alize's in your party, so. If you're DPS main and you love Alize to pieces, well, you're gonna be start calling her frenemy before long and doing these dungeons. So yeah. And I guess I get that maybe that might be part of her character, as they say. She's showing off for the main character, you the protagonist. She's trying to show off her best. Well, that ain't it, Chief. That ain't it. Having her bolster off that limit break at the wrong possible time, that ain't it, Chief. There should always be a proper time and place for limit break to use, but that ain't it, Chief. That is definitely not it. But that aside, like I said, other things, sometimes they won't move out of AoE like they should, which is laughable for the first couple times, but then you get tired of it after you're trying to, like I said, if you're trying to repeat the dungeon for whatever reason, experience points, whatever, it gets tiring that they won't, move. And also, as they're executing mechanics, they're not going to do anything either. They're not going to be healing, not going to be tanking, not going to be DPSing. They're not going to be doing nothing as they're doing mechanics. That also, I think, should change. They should be able to tell the difference of when, okay, stop said action because I'm moving. Okay, if they're moving, I can understand. But if they're just standing still, just doing nothing, well, that doesn't accomplish anything now, does it? So, that's another thing I think needs some serious tweaking and fixing up. As that when they do certain mechanics or move to a safe spot, they just stand there. They just stand there and look at the boss, dumbfounded. And they do nothing. And that's not real great if you're the player. In the player's shoes, in the player's position. That's not real great. So, dev team, developer, if you can please patch that as well. Please and thank you. And another thing, this is controversial, this con, but a lot of people say, oh, well, they're just going to take over the whole queues, nobody's going to play with other people anymore. They're just going to use this great, fantastic trust system. That's not true. Like I said, this is surely a personal preference sort of ordeal. It has nothing to do with like the community or game itself. If people want to play with other people, they'll play with other people. But if they don't want to, or they don't have the time to wait, then this system's for you. You can get done at a reasonable time. Granted, the pacing with Trust is not super fast. It's not. Especially like I mentioned earlier with Thancred tanking, he's not going to be able to pull mass mobs. He can only handle, like I said, about 2 packs before it becomes overwhelming for the AI, and then they die as a result, and then you die as a result, causing a instant wipe from your death. Which I hate that with a passion, as you've clearly seen. So that needs to change, and definitely they need to patch that out and rework that so that it does not happen. Because as I said, we're experienced players by now. This is the 3rd expansion, not the 1st, not the 2nd, not the beta. This is the 3rd expansion. If the player has reached up to this point, developers, the training wheels are gone. The kitty gloves are off. No more of this. Please. No more. I will say this 1,000 times if need be to get it through to you. No more. No more. No more of this player wipe nonsense. Player death equals instant wipe nonsense. No more. Enough of that. There's no more trial and error with us, alright? We know what we're doing. We've been here long enough. We've reached it this far. So no more. Let us learn, devs. Let us learn of our own volition, our own devices. If we mess up and the party dies with us, we die, of course, we'll die, but please let our NPC healer res us, who's a healer, let him get us back up too, like they get the other NPCs up. But yeah, again, it's personal preference if you want to play alone, you want to play solo, or if you want to play, with other people. So, this system makes it, so that either side can be content, be happy. Now, a complaint that some have, though, with this is that, well, what if I, with my significant other, or with my son, or grandson, or cousin, whatever, my best friend, what if we just want to queue up by ourselves with the NPCs? Why can't we do that? And, well, developers said, that this would require more resources and more time to actually have that function that well, and they would have to, do even further reworking to make it so that that's possible. So at the moment, it's a hard no, basically, that they can't do that. That they designed it specifically just for one player and one player alone. Because otherwise, it's gonna, cause a lot of glitching, a lot of crashes within the, the server the instant reserve server, for them having to track, not just one player, but like, two players. So they're tracking two-player datas plus EMPC datas plus the mobs and the boss encounter datas, and so they're all kind of like jumbled in together, scrambling up together, and you know this causes, like I said, a crash of that instance server, and so they don't want that to happen, and so that's why they said no for now. But if in the future, like they have, more resources, more time available to make it work, then they will definitely do so. But for now, it's just a pass, and it may be revisited in the future. So, just hang on. For now, save that complaint. Don't let them forget it. They have a tendency, the devs to forget things if you don't, hammer it on point. Not consistently, because then it just gets flat out annoying, and then they'll for sure say no chance at all. But periodically, drop hints and reminders to them, like, yeah, this I want change. Please make this happen so that I can enjoy this particular content with me and a friend. So have faith, have patience. They hear your feedback, they listen, you know, they take in consideration, what's said, what's spoken by, not just content creators like me, Mr. Happy, Ms. Tech, Larry Zor, Ness, all those guys. They don't just take specifically our words, but they also look at the Lodestone, the official forums, Reddit, Facebook, just various places where they know their player base gathers on a regular basis to discuss, feedback in game. They check these all the time. They have separate teams that check them, and then they compile, they take notes and they compile them together, and then they have the meeting, with Naoki Yoshida, the director and producer, and they just discuss, like all these different feedbacks given, and then they decide, okay, this is a really good idea here. Let's set this aside. Let's keep this and set this aside, and we'll visit it, as soon as we crunch out, this content here that we've been working on. We'll come back and visit this idea, get it done, and presented, ready for presentation. A few weeks, for a month ahead. And prepared, so, you know. And like I said, these are, things like they work on in their spare time when they've got the time. They go back to, those things that us players have heavily requested. They take the time to go back and look at those things and, kind of create a plan of action or plan of attack on how they're going to tackle this request or this issue, this problem, whatever it is. And and then they get to it on, when they have the time to get to it. Like after they're done fixing the current stuff, the bugs with them and hot fixes that they do. Once they get done with that, then they start taking a look at all this other stuff. So it just takes a bit of time and patience. So don't lose faith. Don't shout top of the rooftop. They don't listen. They don't hear us, because they do. They've always been good at listening to us, and they are always listening, always taking in feedback. They don't just specifically pick and choose, like this is the best feedback. Let's listen to just this guy here. They're listening to multiple feedbacks throughout the whole world. They concur with the community game. Team, Asia community team, they ask them, for the feedback from all these, and the community of the dungeons. Like in Heavensward, I can think of them as you'll, switch her between Heaven's Word and between, or, yeah, I think that was her Heaven's Word one, yeah, her Heaven's Word one and her Shadowbringers one, and so on and so forth, so they could add that as an incentive again to have you run the trust system again with, you know, characters that were introduced in this mains, or, you know, specific NPCs, so I think that would definitely work. But also not that, but increasing like the experience gain too also. Like if you're a pre-existing player, you know, like say run through like previous Stormblood dungeons. Okay, so they could say run this dungeon this many times with Lisa as your party through this through dungeons enough time NPC. If you run the dungeons completed these, it's one final like big additional points for complete dungeon with the an amazing addition for them to add going forward. And just like, I really want this, this system to get more polished as well. Nuances that kind of irk us a little bit, and do some refining and tweaking with that as well. And others may disagree, but I think it's a great system. It works. back. Sorry, guys. Is tired brain, tired mind, thinking too critically or too deeply. But the other thing I was gonna do, since this is overview/guide, so I want to say the best position for you to use, if you're farming or trying to level up faster, your best composition for that is, so let's say you want to be DPS, or you main DPS, and you're trying to farm experience points or farm glamour or farm whatever. Then for your tank, of course, Thancred is going to be good for you. For your healer, I recommend Urianshe. Like I said, at times he can be a bit of a crutch healer sometimes, so it can get dicey sometimes with him. But that's only specifically, if you're on the tank role. So tank mains, tank role, if you're planning to level a tank in Shadowbringers, just be, wary of that, that Urianshe can be a crutch healer sometimes, so be aware of that. But overall, he does a fantastic job of keeping, most of us alive, and as a bonus, like I said, if you're doing DPS, for example, he'll give you all the best cards for your specific role or job, since he's, Astrologian here, and they deal in cards and the fate. He'll always deal you the best cards. And it's funny because when they were demoing this live, Naoki Yoshida commented on that. He's like, "Oh, he gives you the best cards every time." So he's good at doing that, and he's good at. He does use his AoE spell frequently when there's big mob pulls. So, and like I said, Thancred could handle up to 2 packs, nothing more than that. Because if you do any more than that, he's gonna not be able to handle it. So, and the dungeons are brief. They aren't super long. It's mostly, like the fight encounters themselves that take up the most time because of the mechanics and everything, and the AI has to perform the mechanics, and like I said, when they're just maneuvering, sometimes they just stand and do nothing. When they're not being hit by anything or they're not required to do anything, they're just doing nothing. So I think that, again, is something they need to patch and work on. But Thancred is your go-to tank, man. The Exarch, okay, this is other spoilers. I'm just gonna, say it here since, Crystal Exarch, you should know that face. I mean, definitely should know that face if you did the Crystal Towers raid series. But that's, people will say his name differently, but I pronounce it as Jirahatia. Some will pronounce it as Graha. But you have to remember there is an apostrophe in his name. And G by itself doesn't really function as, a g sound, or a, you know, G by itself, as I'm even saying it in English right now, J sound, J, J, J. It's supposed to be Jraha. So that's how I pronounce his name, as Jraha. So Jraha Tia is the Crystal Exarch. And he's decent. He's a decent tank. When he takes, he calls, I guess it's called for him, Paladin stance. So when he's in Paladin stance, he does a pretty great job as a tank, so. But again, just like Thancred, he can only handle up to 2 packs of mobs at a time. Any more than that, and it's just gonna overwhelm the AI system, and they're gonna die. But those are your best tank compositions for that. And like I said, for healer, Urianshe is good for that. I haven't tried the Exarch on healer stats, but to be honest, I mean, there's no real way to make him a healer. Because if you're DPS, then automatically Alfino is your healer. Like, there's just no way to, there's no way to get around it. Basically, see.
Very well.
When you summon them, a lot of people have fun with that when they're doing it, like, especially, I guess, with Thancred, because it's just so short. My turn! But, yeah, I don't think you can honestly really get, Jraha Tia as a healer, because of the way this is. They made it, is, like I said, automatically if you're a healer, then he's gonna just automatically fill in as the tank. And then you have the other 2, be the DPS. So, but if you're the tank, then he'll he'll fill in for DPS slot, I believe. In fact, why don't we try that right now? I'll go ahead and equip one of my gun blades here. Gunbreaker's an awesome job, by the way. Definitely one of my favorites. Let's see. Okay, so I'm on tank. So let's say I want to take Alfino. Okay.
Very well.
Alright, so there, yeah.
Very well.
He'll fill in the healer slot then if you're a tank.
Very well.
That makes sense.
Very well.
Though, unfortunately, like I said, that means that he doesn't really fill in the DPS slot, though. Or actually, hold on, maybe I was going about that wrong. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so yeah. If you want him to be your healer, then you can select him as first to be healer for you as a tank, if you're a tank. Yes, then you'll select
my strength is yours.
Alfino as your healer, and then he can fill in a DPS slot. And his DPS slot is basically, Black Mage. I don't know if he would call it specifically Black Mage stance, but I think he would call it most likely Thaumaturge stance. So, which is basically the same thing. Thaumaturge, Black Mage, they're both the same. So that in mind, he'll basically be, just a spellcaster. Does lots of AoE like spells. So and they call his role here all rounder, which I guess that's appropriate because he does every role. So I don't know what his healing's like though, because I've never tested him as healer. I probably will sometime, eventually. Maybe when I do, I guess. I don't know. I don't know. I'll have to test it off screen and let you guys know. But I would say so you won't get her as any other role. But yeah, your tanks, Thancred, Jiraha, they're good tanks for compositions. And as far as your DPS go, like I said, your Stola is very fantastic to have. And despite her flaws, she is good to have as another DPS. Like say you're leveling a healer or you're leveling a tank, then she is pretty good for being your second DPS next to Y'shtola. But alongside Rin, it just it's just so slow. It just goes so slow. Let's put it that way, because they're both single targeting. Like I said, they're not like really using AoE, which I really want to know the reasoning. I want one of the lore masters of this game to tell me, like, why specifically they won't use AoE in dungeons. There's no reason for them not to be honest. Given their skills and their capabilities, there's no reason why they shouldn't be using AoEs when there's a pack of like 3 to 4 or 5 mobs. They really should have no reason that they're not using AoE. Reen here, she's good at single target. Her single target is pretty overpowered. So, I mean, she's good to have toggle on just for that alone, I guess. But if you take Reen, then you'll definitely want Y'shtola or, the Exarch if he's available, for the specific encounter. Then you'll definitely want to take, Y'shtola or Jiraha with her if you're taking Rin with you. So there'll be a good combination of DPS for you. Just don't mix Alizé and Rin together. Trust me. that's asking for a bad time. Let me tell you. Just don't mix those two. And like I said, I love my Alphino. He's a good champ, good sport. He's been with us through thick and thin. But, oh boy, his killing AI just isn't too great. I don't know if Jiraha fares any better. I mean, he's basically, your white mage. White mage slash conjurer, I guess. And I really don't know how he fares in dungeons because I've never tested him out. So, but I probably will, and I'll let you know how he does. But anyway, so for your speed runs, you want your composition to be Thancred or Jirahatia as your tank. Oriente for sure, because he does use this AoE spell on mobs. Plus, he's pretty good at healing, like I said. Sometimes he can be a crutch healer, but overall, he's pretty well. And then Y'shtola, tagging along with Jiraha or with Reen or Alize. Just make sure, you always have Y'shtola. I mean, for the first time, and this is, kind of goes back to cons, you will not have Y'shtola for certain parts of the dungeon. So, also you hear the scenario. The reason this is called scenario in the first place is because it's specifically at that time in the story that you have those specific NPCs available to you. So for the first time you're going through the story, you won't have Y'shtola for, these first few couple of dungeons, so it's really unfortunate. But yeah, that happens. um, but yeah. When you do have, well, like I said, when you do have Y'shtola available, make sure you're using her because she's really good at DPSing and getting damage done. So, and she will be a big help. Anytime you have her available for a dungeon run or for leveling. So that is ideally your composition for if you were just going to speed run through things, is to definitely have Thancred or, Jirahati as your tank, have Urianger as your healer, and have Y'shtola paired with one of the other DPS available to you, because that will make your clears significantly faster by a small margin, not by a huge margin, but it will make a difference. You'll see. For sure. But, if you just want to, do whatever, party you want, if you like certain characters over others, then that's perfectly fine too. You could have, the twins be with you, anytime you want to rerun those dungeons again. Or,
Victory will be ours.
say you really are touched by Rin, she really left an impression on you, then, you want to have her for rerunning dungeons with, so you can have her, and one of the others. Or, you like Urianger, you like Thancred, have them with you. You like Y'shtola a lot, have them with you a lot. Unfortunately, like I said, certain NPCs can only be available certain times, so unfortunately, like Lena here and Jiraha, they can only be available at certain dungeons. So unfortunately, you can't just say, "Oh, I want my sweet little Jiraha or my lovely, my lovely Lena, Captain Lena." Hey, I'm just saying things I've heard. I'm not really trying to be a troll here or nothing. Just going off of what I hear, guys. But you know, say they want to have those two. Unfortunately, you can't have them for all the dungeons. You can only have them for specific dungeons. So, you know, you'll have them for those only specific encounters. Unfortunately, so yeah. But anyway, guys, that was the last thing I wanted to inform you of. So, speed clears. Definitely make sure you have Thancred, or, depending on the dungeon, if you have, Jiraha Tia available, use him as your tank, or, DPS. And then definitely have Y'shtola as either your first or second DPS, and then pair her with the other DPS available. And then Orianze as your healer. Those will help you farm for your experience. Those guys will definitely help you farm for your experience and or glamours and or music, minions, whatever, faster. So at a reasonable time, I should say. Not faster, but at a more reasonable time. So, and though I would love to demo, just how fast, they go, I really am exhausted now, so I'm going to call it a night. So thank you so much for being here watching the video. If you like my content, please give me a like on my videos. Subscribe if you want to. I really appreciate my subscribers here. You guys are awesome. You kind of give me the motivation to keep doing this. Every time I see, a new subscriber, I'm just like, so awesome. That's amazing. Can do this, It gives me confidence booster and motivates me to want to do more content for you guys. So, um, you know, I really appreciate you if you, leave subscribing and likes. If not, maybe you're not wanting to subscribe, you're already subscribed to too many, then I understand. Thank you for stopping by. A like would greatly help my channel, so I'd really appreciate that if you could do so. If you have any comments, suggestions on what you might want me to do in the future for my content on my channel, I'd love to hear your feedback. If there's some things like that I could maybe do better, or you think it should be done differently, I would also like to hear your feedback. Other than that, if you just come here to troll, be negative, I'm just gonna basically ignore you or delete your comment. So I have zero patience and tolerance for people who like to troll and just have bad attitudes. But anyway, again, thank you guys. You're awesome. I hope that you enjoyed my overview and guide. I hope it's useful and helpful to you if you're new. And, I'll be coming out with more videos, as soon as I can, like I've mentioned before in my previous discussion videos. Still right now for me to stream because, I have too much, have, a noise cancellation thing available to me on, PlayStation 4, which is my primary platform at this time. So I don't have like any special noise canceling devices or programming to make it so that I can cancel or block out all this chaotic noise going on, which is why I frequently will apologize, like for my dogs outside being super loud and obnoxious, or I have roommate next to me being so very loud, or family members when they're here making too much noise. So I have to greatly apologize for the poor quality with that going on. But just know that I'm trying my best um to bring you guys the quality that have that I would feel better about having. And going forward, I just hope that everything turns out well, and I'll keep you all updated on my Twitter, on my Facebook group, and on here as well. So, thank you again, once again. Can't thank you enough for being here. And I'll catch you guys in my next video. So be on the lookout, and thank you so much.